Welcome to the number one knowledge hub for home healthcare professionals. This is something that I have been doing for the last week. I have been creating this Discourse community. Why Discourse? Because Discourse ranks in the LLMs. That's a different video for a different time. This is actually the video that shows you exactly what goes into building something like this. It's not a simple process, and I'm going to share with you the N8N flow that is just 3 really small nodes, or what you'd think are really small nodes. This is actually going to get built out to many more things. So this has 1 item in it. You can see this has 10 items in it. This has 10 items in it. And then there is a link to the Supabase, and the Supabase has multiple items, multiple runs for all of the scripts that are needed in order for this to work correctly. So the point of this entire flow, which is to automate the posting and also create a space where healthcare professionals can get the most beneficial and timely information in a encapsulated area that shares with them what to do, how to do it, and basically answers their questions. This actually goes into a quiz. The call to action will be this readiness quiz, and this is the free home healthcare AI readiness score that they can take. It's a 15 question quiz that I created based upon over 107 different research reports that I've created for the home healthcare industry, and I've sent those to the home healthcare agencies, but never got anything back. But that's okay. So this is the quiz that will share with you a free assessment. You just fill this out, and then no credit cards required. This is sharing with you what you'll discover in this quiz. But let's get back to the build here, because this is really important. This build is specific to the exact category that I have. So I have 6 different categories, and of those 6 categories, I will be posting every day automated on this healthcare community. And I will give that link out to the healthcare professionals so that they're able to see what they can learn, also how they can get more information for answers that are specific to their needs. So each community is, or each category in the community is based upon what the most important things are inside of home healthcare right now. And those categories are also LLM crawlable. So with Discourse, one of the things that is very highly technical, as well as very good for ranking, is that when you set it up correctly, you are able to rank in the AI LLMs. And that means that you're getting more authority, you're getting more trust. And more authority, more trust is exactly what we're seeing right now, although people are still veering off into this SEO world. But unfortunately with that, the Google Blue links are going away. And I am hearing from various sources that PPC is not performing as well as it used to. And that's because recommendations and referrals based upon knowledge, trust factors, and authority are far more beneficial than just a link that says, here, I'm bidding on a keyword. So based upon that, this is the Knowledge Hub, and it will have the categories here, the latest and the hot. And this is being built today and throughout, mostly today. I will finish this up, and then it will start to automate those posts. And those posts are specific to the way that I have prompted this. One of the things that you want to make sure of when you are creating a flow like this is that your prompts are absolutely specific and they are able to be simplified and read. A lot of people can make things very complicated, but not many people can make complicated things very simple. And in an effort for marketers to make complicated things simple, what they do is add hype, and they add all this luxurious ease and simplification when it's not. This is not a simple flow to set up. I'm not going to lie to you. It takes many, many hours, probably about 35 to 40 hours to set this up specifically for what I'm doing, and in the way that makes sense to the SQL database, and also the Supabase in the SQL database, and makes sense to the Discourse community as well. In addition, it makes sense to the LLMs. you're taking into consideration different integrations, different APIs, different ways of speaking. So one category or one third-party software can speak differently to Supabase than this software can. And you want to make those absolutely mix, because when you put in an N8N, these are defined. This isn't like a relevance AI where you can kind of do some, oh, I need this and I'm going to prompt you like this. No, it's got to be specific, which is why this works so well. And in order to know how it works so well, you kind of have to think like it. And if you had told me that I was doing this a year ago, if you had said, hey, you're going to be doing these in a year, I would have just looked at you with cross-eyed and said, no, I'm not going to be doing that because I don't even understand it. But making myself understand it and learning as I go along has been beneficial. I've gotten multiple certifications and I keep taking courses and I keep learning on my own. And that's the only way to do this, 16 to 20 hours a day, literally. And this is why this is going to be a very specific and exceptional community, because I have put so much time and effort into this. And by virtue that I am doing this in a way that makes sense to the LLMs and also to the third parties that are involved, N8N and Supabase and the articles, that's, where I get my articles, the APIs. This is where it's going to be exceptionally powerful. And here's why. Because when you create a community based upon something that you know about exceptionally well, and I consider myself an expert in this now because I have spent so many hours on this, and I have researched this home healthcare industry and the healthcare industry for years now, based upon my own personal and also things that have come up that I'm interested in. So that being the case, I'm able to speak to this in a way that an expert can speak to it. And that's the whole point. And getting an expert speak in a way that makes it simple and easy and is written in different ways, different doctrines, then you're able to speak to the people who really want what you have. And that makes it even better, because once you put this together and you create this in a way that makes sense to the LLMs, to make sense to the people that are going to read it, then you've got something that will work as a not only warm lead, but a community that makes sense and that has an offering that they want to engage in. So the step one of this was to create the goal of this entire community. What was the goal? What was I thinking? And I wrote those goals out, and I specifically stated those goals on a daily basis to the LLMs that I was using, the AIs that I was using. And these goals became even more succinct based upon the partial or the part of the work that I was doing. So for example, if it was the article, there was a goal for the article. If it was the build, there was a goal for the build. So it all makes sense, and it's all a part of the entire whole. So you have the whole goal, and then you have the goal for each part. The part two of this, the Supabase setup, was not a simple setup because of the scripts that were needed in order for it to run in a way that made sense to the LLMs. Also, it made sense to the curation of the articles, and it made sense to the people that were going to read this or are going to read this. So in order for that to work, there are different parts of the Supabase that need to be specific to that article. And you have to think about the articles that you're going to work with. If you are, using horse racing or maybe you're using fighting or whatever you're using, you have to make those columns specific to that article. It can't just be a generic. A lot of people buy generic stuff and then wonder why it doesn't work for them. If you want a specific outcome, you can't buy generic stuff. So a lot of people go to Fiverr to buy generic stuff, and then they're upset, or they hire you to do a job and they want generic stuff, but really they want specific stuff, but they're not willing to get specific. So until you can get very, very specific, you're not going to get a specific outcome because you're making it too general. So in order to get that specific outcome, there's iterations that happen. So step two was the Supabase setup, and that was the iteration of being specific on the articles. The next specific step was the Gemini research node in N8N, and that's this node here. Now, it's only one item, but the way that this had to be set up was pretty intense because there's a new version of Gemini out, and in order for you to get the right version. You have to have the right curl. It was not as simple as I thought it was going to be. And then the fourth step of this, which is the integration part of the cleaning of the article. So there's a way to actually curate the article, bringing it in. And then what do you do with the article? You have to clean it. You have to be able to understand it. The LLM has to be able to either rewrite it or write it in a way that's specific to the actual doctrine of what you're saying, which is how are you going to write this that's going to explain this in a simplified and easy manner that makes somebody want to read it quickly. So that cleaning node, that JSON cleaning node, that's part of this node, this Gemini node, and then this data node. So the data node is cleaned data based upon this Gemini node. It's cleaned data into my Supabase. And so all of this is clean data, and these scripts are clean data scripts. And so that makes my data more clean, or cleaner, not more clean, but cleaner. And that inevitably helps to create a better database of articles that I'm able to pull from and write from. Then you have the validation step, and that step, you have to have a specific outcome for that validation step. And so walking through that validation means, how are you going to validate everything to make sure that this is exactly what you want? Does it meet the goal? Is the validation meeting the goal? So there are, like I said, there are different goals and different outcomes for each step. And on this, just on this, and it's not even done yet, just on this, there are 8 steps, and each step is a validation step to meet the goal of the overarching goal and also of the goal for the specific step. What's the goal for the specific step that's going to get you to the end goal? You have to think about that. So now I am on my way to creating a overview of what this is going to look like when the automated data gets pulled, curated, repurposed, cited, etc. And then there's a call to action at the end, obviously. So this isn't just like, oh, let's just throw this together. A lot of people in marketing have made it very, very difficult for people like myself and other professionals to actually do their job in a way that makes sense to the outcome for the client. And what I mean by that is that making things sound really simple is not helping anybody, because it isn't simple. If it was simple, that person would do it. If it were simple, then that client wouldn't need any help. If it were so simple, then they'd be watching YouTube videos and clicking a button here and there. But that's not simple. People don't build to 1 million+ followers in a year simply. They didn't just set it and forget it. People don't want to be forgotten, and neither does anybody who's reading your blog, who's reading your post, who's talking about you or at you or any of that. They don't want to be disregarded. They want you to engage. And that's the whole point of this, is that once you get engagement, then what do you do? So people want all of this engagement. They want all of these followers, but they don't want to engage with anybody. So they want them to follow, but they don't want to engage. You have to engage with people. You have to be able to understand what their outcome is in order for you to get to the next level in your outcome. So there is this disconnect here that makes everything sound like, oh, I can set this up for you and it can be automated and you can get all kinds of leads and everybody's going to be good and you're going to make all kinds of sales. Well, how are you going to make the sales? How are you going to make a sale for somebody who doesn't want to engage with the person who wants to buy from them? That doesn't make any sense. So if you're listening to this and if you've made it this far and you are literally saying to yourself, okay, I get what you're saying. How do I do this? Well, you find somebody like me or you learn it yourself. How did I learn this? Probably over 20 years of doing this in various forms, learning how to code, learning how to build websites, going through the technical glitches, going through multiple failing technical glitches, and then coming out to figure this out on my own. Do I have a coach? No. Do I learn this on my own? Yes. Do I have to listen to monotonous videos? Do I have to go over and over and like my eyes are going to like fall out of my head because I'm so done because I'm so tired? Yeah. That's what it takes. It takes that much consideration, that much effort, and that much diligence in order for you to get to the point where you're able to understand where your end goal is. And this sounds like I'm being, mean or or disconcerting, or maybe you think, oh, well, she's so harsh, but I'm not harsh. This is the way it is. You have to learn how to build it. You've got to learn what you need in order for this to work. And you're seeing part of this build. You're not seeing the whole thing. When I finish, I will share with you the automation part of this, which will be done today, and then how I clone this for each category and how that inevitably gets tested. And then once that workflow is completely tested and each workflow works, or each part of that workflow works, then and only then can I make that live. So this isn't a oh, I can finish this in a week kind of thing. This kind of build whereby you're automating your content. The automation of the content is probably the most important part, and you have to get that right. The building of the actual site or the community is highly technical in the way of what you need. And if you don't have the specific things, for example, if you don't have all of your graphics, get your graphics together, get a graphic artist. If you don't have your Google analytics together, get it together. Know what your analytics are, know what your G4 tag is, create it. Get yourself together and get yourself organized in order for you to be successful. A lot of people aren't successful in this and they give up because there's so many moving pieces. And when you build these things out, the very basics are you can do the very basics of this, but you have to be responsible as the owner of the community right here. The owner of the community is responsible for making this a successful community. The builder isn't responsible. The builder isn't responsible for your marketing. The builder isn't responsible for getting you warm leads. The builder is not responsible for your success. Only you are. And this is something that I think a lot of marketers are now saying, oh, I can make you successful. I can guarantee it. And here's where it gets really, really upsetting for those of us who build like this and who make something that is quality, that can outlast something that is just of another shiny object syndrome. And that is that these are not simple to build. They take a long time. This took me probably this week over 85 hours just to build this, just to get to this point. And I don't even have anything in here just to get to this point. So all of this with the Supabase, with the N8N, with the exact specifications of exactly what I'm doing in each one of these nodes. What is my outcome? What's my expectation? How am I setting myself up for success in this? This is where you as the owner have to come through and say, this is the overarching goal. Now I need help with these goals. And this is where a really good builder will bill you to be your coach and walk you through the overview of what your community should be like. Before you even start building, you need a roadmap. You don't just go out and say, okay, take me to this destination without knowing how to get there. Like, you're not putting into GPS, take me to this destination, and the GPS doesn't even have a map for it. So in order for you to be successful in building communities and building this, I've noticed, especially with someone that I'm following very intently and looking at what they're doing, they have spent thousands of hours on their communities. And even though most everything is automated, most everything is now automated, in the beginning, it wasn't. In the beginning, there was this, and this was all over the place. And this needed to be tested over and over and over again. And it broke many, many times. And it breaks still. This is not guaranteed that it's going to run 100% all the time. Things will change in here. Scripts will change. Software will get updated. You will need to change the way that the API key works, or maybe even change the key itself. So nothing is guaranteed here. And the one thing I want to really bring into the back office of this and building a community that you're able to utilize in a way that gives you warm leads or brings in warm leads to you, that you're able to massage and talk to and engage with, is that every day you're involved in some way, shape, or form. You have to be involved. It's not like, oh, I just set it and forget it and work an hour a day. That's over. That's 80s. That's not happening anymore. You're in the age of AI, and now the competition is so stiff. It's so hard. And it's even harder if you're over 55. It is I have to prove myself 1,000 times more than I ever did in my 30s, ever. I mean, I have to go over and above to prove myself and prove my worth more than anybody else in an age group that's 20 years my junior. Anybody. And it doesn't matter if they don't have it. It doesn't matter. They're younger. And ageism is a thing. So if you're looking at this and you're a Gen Xer and saying, oh, there's no way, there is a way. You have to find that way. And this is your reason to do it, because right now it's a scary time. Everybody's having a very, very difficult time. And in order for us to move on as a society and get to that point where we can all help each other, we all have to hone up and learn something new and scare ourselves enough to get out there and do something that's different. And I encourage all of you Gen Xers to start doing that, following my channels, following me, seeing what I'm doing. And at some point, I will put together a community similar to this for Gen Xers that I will have for learning how to do this and thinking in the way of, how do I think about this? It's more, how do I think about this? Not how do I learn this, but how do I think about it? How do I engage myself to create the roadmap before the roadmap is even built? It's you're now building something from your mind's eye. And that's where this all came from. So I want to give you a little bit of encouragement here as I, talk about this. This was not easy. It was a lot of hours, it was a lot of frustration, and it was very, very specific. I had to get so specific with myself and with every single endpoint that I needed, especially this is 21 items just right here. 10 items here, 10 items here, and an item here. And then one item at the start. And each one of these needs an executable way to think about, what is the execution and what am I doing with all of these scripts? What does each script here do? What does each script do? What is this? It's a normalized script. Why am I using these? Because every single step of this process needs a single script to tell it how to think. It's not going to think in the way that you think. It has to be told how to think. So you've got to be able to think in that way. How are you going to tell it how to think? And this is where a lot of people haven't taken the time to go back into, what is the end goal of this community? What is the end goal of it? The end goal is to bring to light all of the information that it has to do with AI knowledge for home healthcare and healthcare professionals in a way that makes sense to them, that they can read and encapsulate in a very minimal amount of time and get as much information and as much out of this as possible, so that they can either take advantage of, number one, the free home healthcare AI readiness score, or number two, work with me, or number three, look at their business and say, okay, this is what I need, and how am I going to get there? And now they start thinking in that way. And that helps everybody, because if you're in the home healthcare industry, there are more people turning 65 every day than there are 18. So the 18-year-olds and the 30-year-olds, you guys are not anymore the Gen Xers were. We were a big part of this growing up. And this part of us, we'd had a lot of experience, but unfortunately, a lot of us got comfortable. There were a lot of Gen Xers that got too comfortable in the knowledge of, oh, it's not going to change that much. And 1999 came around and they were taking it for granted when this .com bubble came out. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know yet, but a lot of the Gen Xers just kind of fizzled off and stopped learning, stopped growing. But there are some of us who didn't, who are now becoming so much more of a roadmap, so much more of a path, so much more of the intelligence that helps the younger generations think about things in a way that makes sense, that they can take into consideration, how do I think? How am I thinking about this? And as I get older, how am I going to think about this? So every age group, every generation has their own ages, and you're going to go through it. If you are 40, you're going to go through it. If you're 30, you're going to go through it. I didn't think I was, but it's 20 years later and I'm going through it, baby. So think about your end result here. In closing, I just want to say this is this is where I'm at right now. I will be able to put up another video soon on the total build on N8N, which will include the automations. And that will help a lot of people out just to think about, okay, this is how it's automating. This is how it's doing this. I'm making this very clear. And I'm also making this in a way that is not scripted. There is no script in front of me. This isn't AI generated. This is all me, free flow on this video. And if you like it, great. Leave a comment, share it, subscribe, do something good for somebody, help somebody else out in the position that you want to be in. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you for leaving a comment, sharing, liking, and subscribing to this channel wherever you are, Substack, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you are. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you in the next video.